Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we're talking about a project and group called the Lincoln Project. This is a group of supposed conservatives who are now never Trumpers and playing the middle lines. They're kind of like very, very anti Trump, former conservatives, what many would call rhinos, Republican in name only. And this group has been pretty negative and terrible ever since their inception late last year. They've only been around for just under a year, about half a year, and they've tried to make some bogus video edits and try to go after Trump. They're basically working against Trump. They're like conservatives who are still mad that he won the nomination in the presidency back in 2016. And what they've done since then is tried to undermine their own party, which really just makes them, again, rhinos. They're not really on our side. They're working with the enemy, actually. So them helping the liberals isn't really a good look. And on top of that, what's happened recently is, and what we're talking about today, is two specific instances where these people have been ousted as very, very bad, not only anti female, but also anti American. They've supported what they would call one of our adversaries. There's one that even admitted that they were an asset of Russia, which is very interesting because that's what they've accused Trump of for years. And one of these Lincoln Project guys listed Russia as a place of his employment and where he was working for. And it's going to get real crazy, really interesting. This story has a lot of legs. And basically, the only other thing before we get to the articles is this thing was co-founded by Rick Wilson. Rick Wilson is a terrible never Trumper. This guy was one of the ones we caught on CNN, like laughing at the middle class, like acting like Americans are all these terrible rednecks. Like he did this silly voice on a video where he's like, I'm a Trump supporter, I'll get some Trump support. And, he did this little voice, like acting like all Trump supporters are these like uneducated rednecks, like just basically blasting half of America, most conservatives, like the middle class. And it makes sense. It matches up with his personality and his lifestyle and the fact that he's started this terrible Lincoln Project, which really is a disgrace since it's using President Abraham Lincoln's name, trying to imply they're like the real conservatives or something, but they're not. They're never Trumpers who have really negative views, and they're also getting exposed for very bad things. So the first article we're going to talk about today comes from The Hill. It says, Lincoln Project boots video editor after crude tweets surface. This is the one where he goes anti-female, and the article has more details. Let's read on. The Lincoln Project, an anti-Trump Republican PAC, ousted a video editor after crude tweets resurfaced where he used offensive slang for female anatomy to insult political adversaries, the 19th first reported. The nonprofit news outlet asked the Lincoln Project about the tweets Ben Howe posted after the 2016 election, calling rivals a vagina, among other epithets. Howe wrote in a June 2018 tweet, I want to be a feminist, but every time I call someone a C word, I get yelled at. He would reportedly also criticize the Republican Party for nominating President Trump, who has made crude comments about women as well. Based on these unacceptable and offensive posts and those that came into light last week, Ben Howe is no longer affiliated with the Lincoln Project, effective immediately. Keith Edwards, the group's spokesman, said in a statement to the 19th. The Lincoln Project did not immediately respond to an inquiry from The Hill. So already a lot to say there. He used some crass language on Twitter, and it got him into trouble. That's what can happen in this day and age. I mean, it's not cool. I wish people had more freedom to speak, but if your company or who you're associated with wants to let you go in this situation, that's their right too. You got to remember, like, public life is a lot different, especially in this day and age. So even going back to 2016, a lot of things were different just 4 years ago. And again, I'm not like encouraging this cancel culture, but it's definitely like a you get what you get situation because these Lincoln Project guys are terrible. They've lied about Trump immensely. They've accused him of saying bad things too. Like we said, like they're the ones that say Trump hates women himself and says bad things about them. But I'm not seeing any of those comments. I'm not seeing tweets where he uses those epithets, like where he's like bashing women and saying bad things because he disagrees with them. Like, yeah, sure, Trump tweets a few things, a few jokes once in a while, but never anything like this. Like, there might be a few implications. Like, I know there was that one time he said something about seeing red or something like that, but it's just not even comparable. And the fact that this Lincoln Project has an editor that's openly like this, I mean, I'm not trying to clutch any pearls here. Like, I'm not one to get offended. Like, I'm down with people speaking freely and maybe even saying a few harsh things. But, it doesn't match up with the Lincoln Project because they're the ones trying to be purist and go after Trump and bash him for these things that they're guilty of far worse. Howe, who began his career by making anti Obama ads during the rise of the Tea Party, has faced backlash for other tweets as well. Last week, the Daily Dot resurfaced other tweets where he defended the police officer who killed Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. Some people just need a tap on the shoulder to change, others need a slap in the face. Me, I've often needed a piano dropped on my head. The piano fell years ago, but I suppose I'm still crawling out from under the wreckage in some ways, he said in a statement to the 19th. I'm better than I've been, and I intend to be better than I am, he said. So I think what that tells me is, I'm not really sure about this statement about at the end here. He's just talking about hyperbole, but the part about Michael Brown, like the police officer was defendable in that case. Like the police officer was attacked. Michael Brown went after him, and the cop had to defend himself since the guy was reaching for his weapon. So, I mean, that's not really the thing that should be punishable, but here's the trick. Here's where it gets tricky. Like I was saying, since these guys are leaving the conservative side, we're not going to be able to stand behind them and support them. Like, even though like I said, this Michael Brown situation is very cut and dry. Like the reports are all out there, and they know that the police officer was acting in self-defense. And it sucks that someone died, of course, but this is another one of those arrests gone wrong that really is misrepresented. So they're implying that defending the cop is really bad when really it's not. But the problem is this guy, this editor, and this Lincoln Project, they're playing on the left wing side now. They still pretend to be conservatives, but they're basically with the Democrats, they're with the liberals, and they're going to cancel you if you're in their group, if you're butting heads with them, like rubbing shoulders, like they're going to cancel you if you don't toe the line, even if it happened before you switch sides. So this is just kind of them playing with fire, messing with the kitchen, can't take the heat, and it's coming back on them as it should. I mean, this is just terrible things happening to terrible people who should have known better. The next point comes from this tweet from Cernovich talking more about Lincoln Project, talking about that second story I mentioned. It says right here that Lincoln Project co-founder was a literal foreign agent for, wait for it, are you ready? Can you guess? Russia. Yes, we're talking about the other co-founder being an agent for Russia. These pictures have more details. Basically, this one talks about him listing his principal address as in Moscow. So that's not a good look. And then here, he just signs right here. He's a senior partner at the Lincoln Project. So the Lincoln Project has a person who works for Russia. He's a Russian asset. He admits, he says he works for Republicans back in the day here, but his profile also says he's voting for Biden now. So it's just really an anti-Trump thing. Like a lot of conservatives ended up having this Trump derangement syndrome. And in addition, this guy is working for Russia. I mean, it's just, you can't really come back from that. Like we've got an anti-feminist thing, and then we've got an anti-female guy getting fired, and now the co-founder is a foreign agent for Russia, which he admitted to on his forums. I mean, this article has the details. It says, Kasich advisor will lobby against potential Russia sanctions. John Weaver, the top strategist for John Kasich's presidential campaign in 2016, has registered as a foreign agent and plans to lobby against potential sanctions on Russia. Weaver signed a contract last month to lobby on behalf of the Tenem Corporation, a subsidiary of Rosatom, the Russian state-owned nuclear energy company. Weaver will lobby Congress and the Trump administration on sanctions or other restrictions in the area of atomic nuclear energy, trade, or cooperation involving in any way with the Russia Federation, according to a disclosure filing. The 6-month contract is worth $350,000 plus expenses, with an option to extend if necessary. Time is of the essence in the agreement. The contract reads according to a copy filed by the Justice Department. Wow, this is big money. I mean, $350,000 for half a year of work, plus your expenses are covered. I mean, this guy is making a crap load, and he's doing it by working for Russia, lobbying for their interest in Congress. And I think that's rather interesting, rather telling, because again, like we talked about before, we spent 4 years defending Trump, saying he had nothing to do with Russia. And then come to find out, all his opponents are actually in bed with Russia. I mean, Hillary was supporting that fake Steele dossier. We have other people working for foreigners in Russia. Biden has his family working for China, another adversary. And it's just the liberals are guilty of what they accuse us of. In this case, we're talking about liberals are former conservatives working for the Lincoln Project, who are actually assets of Russia. And they're trying to take down Trump And they're the same ones who go along with the Russia collusion narrative. They're trying to say, oh, the Mueller investigation is significant, like, oh, we're going to get something on Trump. But it's like, no, dude, you're the Russian agent. It's not clear exactly what sanctions Weaver will be lobbying against. Senator Lindsey Graham and Bob Menendez introduced legislation in February to beef up sanctions on Russia, which would curtail the amount of uranium that could be imported from Russia starting in 2021, among other provisions. The bill hasn't made it out of committee. Weaver is a longtime Republican operative who served as Kasich's chief strategist during his 2016 presidential campaign and has continued to advise him. He told the Associated Press in February that Kasich is leaning toward challenging President Donald Trump in the GOP primary. So these are just old school, like classic conservatives, like old Republicans who just couldn't get on board with the Trump train. They didn't like it. He obviously supported this Kasich candidate who lost to Trump. And they're just, they're real bitter about it. Like I said, Rick Wilson is another one of those. He started this company. He's been outed as a terrible person. These guys are hypocrites. They're just not what we even want in the party. They act like we abandoned them, but it's like, no, you didn't evolve. You went the wrong way. And now we can see that these Lincoln Project people, which is like a group of these former Republicans trying to get Trump out of office, trying to vote in Biden, who is obviously much worse. I mean, this is not a person. Biden is not a person who's going to help any conservatives, even if you're like a middle ground, like centrist. So the fact of the matter is, we've seen proof that this Lincoln Project, it's a bad, bad situation. It's got anti-female things, anti-feminist, and also just pro-Russia stuff, like anti-America. They're supporting the enemy, the supposed enemy. I mean, I'm not like big on the anti-Russia stuff like all the liberals are, but they're the ones who started that. They're the ones saying Trump is a Russian asset, but at the same time, so are some very anti-Trump people. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also hit that like button to get this shared, subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell for notifications. Until next time, have a great day.